Welcome. We are excited to have you here, Yvonne and I. And my name is Stephanie, and Yvonne Bunn is on my left, your right. And we're excited to be with you tonight. We are going to do our live Q&A for our How to Begin series. And we have questions that we are going to talk about a myriad of things, but especially about testing. So, if you have questions that aren't testing related, that's okay. We can touch those too. So feel free to make comments in the chat section if you have a specific question yourself, and we'll make sure that we get that answered before we get off. We've got such a short, quick time with you tonight, 30 minutes. So we want to make sure that we invest your time well. But you know what? I have got to tell you something. Yvonne, can you believe that convention is getting ready and shaping up now? It's not
I
June.
know.
Convention's in June 8, 9, and 10, but registration for convention opens for members only on Monday. The cost for your family, not individual, but for your whole family is $89. So it's a great price for a whole 3 days of training, of encouragement, of resource materials, of curriculum. You don't want to miss it. I know when we were homeschooling, and I'm only 2 years since, it was a time of refreshment for my whole family, not just for me. So I hope
Mhm.
you'll plan now to be there. And I'm sure you might have questions along the way. But if you're a member, be sure to register on Monday beginning at 10 a.m. For the convention that is June 8, 9, and 10. But anyway, Yvonne, we have a
Mhm.
lot of questions. So let's get
Mhm.
started and
Sure.
we'll see how many we can get through.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Oh goodness. The first one that we want to entertain tonight is we'll begin to homeschool soon. We are beginning to homeschool soon. Are test scores needed to begin homeschooling? That's a great question.
No, they're not. Test scores are not required until after the year that you have homeschooled. But I will share this information with you. That means that if you begin homeschooling now in the middle of the year, or even if you started homeschooling in April or May of this school year, you will have to provide test scores by August 1st after you have begun homeschooling. So, in order to start, no test scores are required. If you wanted to take some type of evaluation with your child or some type of test that would show what grade level your child would be in, we have those resources on the HEAV website at heav.org. You can go there and look at that, and you could do something that we would kind of call a placement test. And that placement test, you would know where to start your curriculum, where the strengths are with your child, and where the weaknesses might be. So the beauty of homeschooling is you don't have to start at third grade because that's the grade he's supposed to be in. Maybe he's advanced and in arithmetic, and you could start in fourth grade math, but do third grade English. So you can mix it up like that. You want to do what's best for your child, but there's no requirement for sending in any type of testing scores until after the year that you have homeschooled. And in that case, the deadline is August the 1st each year.
Excellent, excellent. Just to bounce off on that, Yvonne, should they wait till July to get that testing done?
No, don't wait that late. You have to, you can test anytime. And the law doesn't actually tell you when you have to give the test. It just says that the test has to be submitted by August 1st each year after you have homeschooled. So that's what it says.
Right.
I would recommend, and most people will test in the spring. April, May, June. Those are very, very popular testing times. You don't, if you test earlier than that, say if you wanted to test in March, early March, your child will be evaluated or compared to other students who took that test in March. Because I used to think, oh my goodness, my child hasn't finished everything he needs to know for the grade that he's in. So I don't want to test him until I finish everything he's supposed to know for that grade. But that's not the way it works. And so if you test early, then your child would be compared to other children who tested at the same time of the year. So, you can test early. There's not a great advantage in doing that. It's totally up to you, how it works for you, for your schedule, and how your child is doing. So it's up to you when you test. The key is getting the score to your division superintendent by August the 1st.
Right, right. Well, there's certain things, Yvonne, that need to be submitted. What would those things be that they need to start thinking about?
Once your child takes a test, you, of course, will not be scoring the test. You will order the test from a testing company or a publisher or someone who provides the test for parents. They'll send the test to you. It may be a paper and pencil test, which you can request if that's what you prefer, or it could be an online test where your child can type in the answers on a computer. And in that situation, you want to make sure that your child is familiar with a computer and knows how to operate it and how to work in that format. If not, then you may want to do a paper and pencil test, which is just fine. But you do have to allow time for the company to receive the test back in the mail, if it's paper particularly, and then they have to score it, and then they send those scores to you. Even if you do it online, you may not get the results immediately. Companies are different. Some companies will offer it very quickly. Others may take a week or so to do it. So the key is to give yourself enough time to send it off and get the results back. And another thing you need to watch out for, suppose your child does not do well on the standardized achievement test. If he doesn't, then I would suggest if he does not meet the minimum requirement, which is a score in the fourth stay 9, a composite score of 23 percentile or higher, which begins with the fourth stay 9. If he doesn't meet that composite score, which is the compilation of mathematics and language arts and all the subtests that go with that, if the score is not that high, don't send those scores in. You need to have time to do a different type of test or a different type of evaluation, which may mean an independent evaluation with an evaluator instead of using a standardized achievement test. And especially think about that if you have a child who's delayed in his learning, may have a learning disability, maybe autistic, that child may not do well on a typical standardized achievement test. Even though they could be very bright, they may not be able to use that format. And so in that case, you want to bring in an individual, a personal evaluator to evaluate your child. So give yourself time to know that. If that question is in the back of your mind, give yourself enough time to do something else and then send that evaluation in lieu of a standardized achievement test. That's your choice as the parent.
That's a great question and a good answer, Yvonne. When we're talking about what needs to be submitted, what does blank out test results mean?
Well, when you get your report back from the company, you'll usually have 1 or 2 pages, and they will have all the information that they have gathered from looking at that test. And it's not just, it will have a percentile, it will have a composite score, it will have the raw score, it will have information from all of the subtests that make up the total language or the total mathematics score. The law says that you are to provide a composite score, which is the combination of all the sub scores that are there. The composite score in or above the fourth stay 9 or 23 percentile and higher. So some parents do not want to send all of that other information in. They just want to send the composite score. And some parents have been known to mark out, to white out, to black out the sub scores. I don't know that I would recommend necessarily that you do that, because some superintendents would question the report because they feel that the parent has tampered with the report. So if there's any question from your superintendent or the homeschool liaison that you're working with in your school district, any question on sub-scores, then you need to make sure that they understand that the law says it's a composite score, not the subscores. Now, the subscores make up the composite scores, but you can be low in one or two subscores and still have a very good composite score. So it's the composite score that the law talks about. So that's why some parents want to remove those from the testing report. But that may not be the best thing to do because it could raise questions. So if they are looking at the subscores and say, well, your child didn't meet 23 percentile in all the test parts that he took, that's okay. It's the composite score that counts. And so if there are any questions about that, please call us and we will be glad to answer your questions about that and possibly make sure that the district understands the law correctly.
Very good. This question is a very popular question and comes often. When you have a 5-year-old, do I have to test them?
No, you do not. If your child is 5 on September 30th, the law does not require your child does not require you to provide any evidence of progress for a 5-year-old. He's very young. He could be immature. He could not, just not want to take a test that day. It could be that, he's just feeling sad that day and just doesn't want to do the work. So, you're dealing with a very young, not a mature child at that age. And so HEAV had the law changed a number of years ago to say that there was an exception for 5-year-olds, children who are 5 on September 30th at the beginning of the school year do not have to be tested at the end of the school year. So no testing for 5-year-olds. It doesn't matter if he's considered a kindergarten student or a first grader. That's not what the law addresses. It says if your child is not 5 on September 30th, he does not have to be tested by the end of that school year. So it's the age of the child on September 30th, not what grade he's in, that matters.
Good. Who can test, Yvonne? I'm a parent. Do I have enough ability to be able to test my child?
You do. It depends on the testing company that you use. Some testing companies or publishers will allow parents to administer the test or proctor the test, and other ones will not. So you need to look at the test, and they're all online. We have a list of them on the HEAV website. We have the cost of them, contact information as to where you can get them, and they will tell you whether or not the parent can actually administer the test. And some online tests, parents need to be in the room, but they have proctors online that will monitor the test also. So there are different ways that companies, do things like this. So you just need to look at the test that you're interested in and see what their regulations are for that. But it's a good possibility a parent could administer a test. And of course, they give clear instructions and times and things like that, that you simply have to be there and monitor the testing process yourself.
Now, just to bounce off of that, now tests are different than evaluations because the parent can't do an evaluation.
Yes, tests are standardized achievement tests that are normed by a group of children who are the same age or the same grade as your child and who takes it at the same time of the year. An evaluation is different. An evaluation, it can be provided by someone who is a certified teacher in any state or someone with a master's degree or higher in an educational, some type of educational discipline. And that person can come to your home. You could go to them and they can do an evaluation on your child. You can talk to the evaluator ahead of time and you can find out, how they would do an evaluation on your child. And if you're not in agreement with that, then you can go find another evaluator. And you can, work with them as to the timing, whether they're going to do it all at one time, one setting, or they're going to come multiple days and do short times with your child. You know what would work best with your child. And so you can have that conversation with your evaluator. You might want to talk to an evaluator early in the year, if possible, to find out if you want to use this evaluator, what is her criteria? Does she want samples of your child's work? in a portfolio type situation so she can see the child's progress? Or does she want to do a criterion reference test, which is a test that she would write out and she would make up and give to your child? So find out what that tester's or evaluator's requirements would be so that it would be an easier way to move into that with your child, very natural, and you'd have everything already prepared for the evaluator.
Excellent. So what happens, like some of us moms often encounter, if I mail my test scores in late?
Well, that's not a good thing to do. Try not to do that. The law is very clear. It says August 1st after the year that you've homeschooled. Now, August 1st means August 1st, and that's the law. And whether or not you know the law, you are expected to know the law. And so you need to ask. If you're not sure, look on the website, do research. You need to send it in. Now, one thing you can know is if you, it's usually the postmark on your evaluation or your test that your results that you're sending in, they'll go by the postmark. So if it's postmarked by August 1st, you're probably okay. If for some reason you forgot about it, you were on vacation, somebody was really sick, then what I would do is I would contact the superintendent and not make a lot of excuses about it. And I would just simply say, I neglected to do what I was supposed to do. May I test now and send these results in immediately? And or some whatever time frame will work for you and for the superintendent. It is up to the superintendent whether or not he'll accept those test results after the deadline. He could certainly say, no, I'll put you on probation next year. And that means that he oversees what you do and the work that you do, because the law is very clear that a parent can be put on probation if the scores are low or if they simply do not turn those test scores in. So you don't want that situation to happen. So make sure you follow what the law says and get those in by August 1st. But if not, I would appeal very sincerely to the superintendent to let you get those scores in afterwards. But whatever he says is, he will say, and he has the authority to do that.
I was always afraid I'd miss that date. So my calendar was marked for July 15th every year.
Yes.
July 15th.
Me too.
I know. Well, you were talking so much about the superintendent. So I know the answer to this, but where do we send these tests? And where can they find this information?
Yeah. The information is on the HEAV website under the law section. We have superintendent's addresses there. You would send the results of your test or your evaluation letter from the evaluator to the division superintendent or to the homeschool liaison. You would send it to the same person that you have already sent your notice of intent to. So that's the same person that would get the evaluation or the scores.
Excellent. Well, there's been a lot happening this year in the law, in the homeschool law. Tell us how HEAV is changing the homeschool law.
Well, we have, as we have had a homeschool monitoring team, we have a team of volunteer parents who are just wonderful. We have known for years that that there have been issues with how the law is understood at the local level. With the homeschool liaisons, we know that there is a turnaround each year with people moving into new positions. And very often the people that oversee homeschoolers or receive the notice of intents for the superintendents, they don't know the homeschool law. They're not familiar with it. They are not clear on how it's applied. And so very often they will require additional things that the law does not require from parents who have sent in their notice of intent. A lot of times they'll have forms on their websites that require information that the law does not say we have to submit. And so we have a lot of things going on at the district level that create problems for homeschool parents. It creates, we have to make lots of phone calls. Parents make phone calls. Parents discuss things. We have to send copies of the law to the districts so that they are understanding what the law says. And so there are 4 different criteria or ways that parents can homeschool. First, you can have a high school diploma or higher. Second, you can be a Virginia certified teacher or tutor. Third, you can use a correspondence course or distance learning program or a program in any other manner, or you can write a letter and explain how you were able to teach your child at home. So all of these different ways, these 4 different criteria, create a lot of different situations, questions that have to be dealt with if they're not implemented correctly. And so lots of time, lots of energy for parents, for HEAV, and for the superintendents and the homeschool liaisons. And so HEAV is introducing legislation, and Delegate John McGuire is the one that is introducing that for HEAV. And Delegate McGuire is putting in legislation that will remove these 4 criteria for the parents, because we believe that it's not, we should not have this barrier at the beginning of homeschooling for the parents when anybody can actually comply with one of those 4 different ways to homeschool. Anyone can do that. And then but what is most important is the outcome. So what are the results? And we know, as we've just been talking about testing, that there are accountability measures that parents have to comply with. Your child has to be in the 4th stay 9 or higher in order for you to continue homeschooling. And so let's look at the outcome. Let's look at how well our children are doing and let that be the standard for continuing to homeschool. There's no reason to have these 4 different criteria for the parents at the beginning, because they can, parents can meet any of those. So let's simplify the process. Let's just eliminate that situation. Go ahead, let parents file a notice of intent with the names of their children, their ages on September 30th, and their contact information, and send that into the superintendent, and then go ahead and homeschool and send their test results in at the end of the year. It would just simplify it so much. So we have put in legislation. Delegate McGuire has written that and submitted it for us. And we will begin the process in another week with putting this bill in. It will begin the committee process, and we will see if we can simplify the homeschool statute for the homeschoolers in Virginia. And we have another bill that we're putting in, a second bill. Delegate Karen Greenhall is putting that in for us also. And that has to do with privacy issues for those that would want religious exemption or any type of discussion about information on their notice of intent form. It would mean that school boards would need to handle this discussion privately and not in a public meeting. And so that would just protect homeschool parents also, unless the parent wanted or gave permission for that information to be made public. And so we have these 2 bills. We're looking at other bills that we know that are going to be coming up. Sports access has been introduced again this year. ESAs, or educational savings accounts, several of those bills have been introduced. Immunization legislation having to do with parents giving permission or parents being able to opt out of COVID vaccines and other inoculations. And so lots of different things we're looking at that will impact homeschool families. So we'll keep you posted. Please sign up for our legislative updates on our website, and join us in letting your legislator know what your opinion is and what you would like him to support and vote for.
Oh, wow. We have so much going down the road
Yes,
right now.
we
We need
do.
to keep in our prayers, our mind. We need to be supportive. We need to keep our ears open. Yvonne, we've got about 5 minutes left, and you can't
Okay.
believe it's already been 30. But a couple more questions have come through, like the notice of intent diploma each year. Do you have to submit it every year with your notice of intent?
The law does say that you are to provide evidence of your high school diploma, your master's degree, doctorate, whatever degree you have. Yes, you should provide that each year. unless your school division says we have it on file, you don't need to send it in. So I would automatically send it in unless you know that it's okay not to, or they've communicated that with you, because I would expect if you don't send it in, they could hold everything up until they get that evidence. So I would just go ahead and send it in unless you already know it's okay not to. And that would be something you would need to just not be hearsay, but make sure that that is the case.
And I would actually, if that's an email, I would print that email out and put it
Good
with
idea.
your file. But I know I would just I made a JPEG or a PDF of my diploma and just kept it in my computer. So it was just easy to send every year without having to find it.
That's right. Very good.
Notice of intent for kindergarten or first grade for a 5-year-old in testing. How does that work?
Well, a notice of intent for a 5-year-old, you could go ahead and file a notice of intent for your 5-year-old and send it in. Or you could actually delay your 5-year-old if you felt like your child was not mature enough or ready for school yet. So it's just a matter in that case, if you think your child is not ready for school, then you would just simply notify the school board that you've elected not to send your child to school that year because he is not 6 by September 30th. And so if you have a 5-year-old on September 30th and you think he's just not ready to sit down and hold a pencil, I don't know how this is going to work, then you can delay that child for that year. And the following year, you can file your notice of intent depending on how much you've worked with him, how he's matured or she has matured. Then you can file your notice of intent for your 6-year-old, and you can actually begin either with kindergarten material or first grade material. Depends on where your child is, and you, of course, know your child better than anyone else. So, and just remember, you don't have to test your child if he is not 6 on September 30th. So, don't have to do that anyway.
That's good. That's good. One last question before we bring our evening to a close about immunization, because that's a hot topic. What does the law say when it comes to immunizations?
Well, homeschool children are to be immunized in the same way as children who go to public school. However, immunizations or shot record is not part of the homeschool law. So we would suggest that parents follow the law and they have their record of their childhood in their children's immunizations. They keep it on file at home unless the superintendent asks to see it. And the law does say that the superintendent may ask to see it, not just anyone in the superintendent's office, but the superintendent. The law is very clear that it says the superintendent may ask to see that. And we know that some superintendents are asking for that along with the notice of intent. But we just remind parents that immunizations are not a requirement to homeschool. They are a requirement to go to public school and most private schools also, because they're in a group setting. But to homeschool, they are not. And also, there are exemptions to religious exemptions and medical exemptions to immunizations too. So you can file that form and keep that on file at home instead, if that's what your preference is.
What a great night. We've covered quite a few questions there. And I know that there's probably so many more. I know there was when I was out there. So I just say, go to the Facebook page, become part of the HEAV website. There are people there always, the phone counselors in the HEAV office. Yes. It's not just this 30 minutes right now. It's ongoing help to just sit down with you one-on-one by phone, on Facebook, etc., that you can get your questions, your specific questions answered and get that encouragement along with that. So we do this quite often. So this isn't the last time, but I know that it's been a fun night and I appreciate you being here, Yvonne, just a wealth of information and just your time alone. But I have to say one more time, if you weren't here in the beginning, there is something happening Monday morning at 10 a.m. And what was that, Yvonne? Do you remember?
We're going to have registration for HEAV members for the HEAV convention in June. And if you're not a member, you can join right on your registration form and you can get that special family discount of $89. And so we hope to see you, if not before then, in June at the HEAV convention. So registration starts on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. So don't miss it.
Excellent. Well, you have a good night, Yvonne. Good night to everyone here, and I'll see you again soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.